Worum geht es hier? Wir sind also bei den IDS Winterdays. Schon jetzt hier der IDS Mobility Community. Ich freue mich, dass ihr dazukommen könnt. Ich teile jetzt einfach mal meinen Bildschirm. Müsst ihr mir sagen, ob ihr den sehen könnt, meinen Bildschirm. Kann man den sehen?
Perfekt.
Ah, wunderbar, wunderbar. Ja, worum geht es inhaltlich? Natürlich Titel Revolution, also reißerisch aufgemacht, aber in der Tat, das ist nicht, was ich gesagt habe, sondern ich zitiere hier die Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung dort, mehr vielleicht noch später dann dazu. Und warum geht es jetzt hier für die Audience? Also die Idee ist also, dass nicht ich hier lange groß rede, sondern die wichtigsten Data Spaces im Bereich Mobilität, Automotive hier zu Wort kommen. Denn die Community, über die wir hier reden, die ist fokussiert auf Mobilität. Und die 3 Data Spaces, die also heute die mit eingeladen sind und auf der Bühne sind, ist einmal der Mobility Data Space, dann ist es das Gesamtvorhaben der Initiative, eine Projektfamilie, X for Future Mobility und Catena X. Ich bin der Chris Langdon und ich bin bei der Deutschen Telekom und also ich freue mich, dass ich also hier diese IDS Community leiten darf, nicht alleine, sondern das mache ich zusammen mit dem Sebastian Peters von der Fraunhofer Gesellschaft und der ist nun, lässt sich leider entschuldigen, der ist im Urlaub, so dass ich das hier also heute alleine vortragen werde. Ich habe das mal geschnitten heute so in 3 Segmente. Erste Teil, manchmal ein kurzes Update zur Community, auch noch eine Einleitung, also für die nicht kennen, was machen wir überhaupt, was haben wir schon geschafft. Und dann würde ich schnell überleiten auf die Hauptakteure und das sind jetzt hier die 3 Data Spaces und das Format, was wir uns überlebt haben, ist eine Panel-Diskussion und danach möchte ich auch gerne noch Zeit lassen für Fragen und Antworten.
Dear Chris, may I kindly interrupt you?
Die Frage, wollen wir das in Englisch alles machen?
Yes, please. Please, I would like to ask you to do that in English for all our international attendees here.
Yes, I do it in English, right?
Great.
We do it in English. Very good. Very good, very good. Sorry about that. Okay, so we do this in English. I just forgot about that. I apologize there. So what we're going to do is I slice the whole session into 3 segments. The first part is going to be community update. Briefly, what is the IDS Mobility Community about? What has been accomplished? What is on our agenda? And I want to quickly move over to our panel where we have the 3 leading disciplines in automotive and mobility. And then I want to allow for a session on Q&A. So let me then quickly start with the introduction. And first of all, thank you to Lars Nagel. He is the CEO of IDSA for letting us actually create and run and operate this wonderful IDS mobility community. I'm running this together with Sebastian Pretsch from Fraunhofer. Let me also say a big thank you to Christoph Mertens, because with our mobility community, we're helping adoption efforts, and whenever there's an opportunity, is giving us a slot, like in this particular event, and we're very grateful for this. Also specifically, thank you for this event is Andreas. Andreas, he just reminded me to switch to English. Andreas, thanks. Sorry about that again. And then on our side is Michaela from Telekom. She has helped me actually organize this event. And then, of course, a big thank you to in the audience and the strong supporters of our community. So what is this community all about? Well, we try to get the word out. And how do we do this? Well, we have 2 thrusts in our community. The one is that we participate in events. And the one event that happened just at the end of last year was the ITS World Congress, the Intelligent Transport System World Congress in Hamburg. It happened in Hamburg. This year it'll be held in Los Angeles. And we were able actually to present use cases and first demonstrations at that event. Big deal for us. And so this is just one example. So we attend these kind of events. Previously, we had been invited to join at the International Auto Show. So wherever we get an opportunity, we talk about data spaces in this particular vertical, mobility and automotive. That's one activity. The other one that also from this category of getting the out, something that we call the ontology. And let me actually show you what that is. Let me switch back to the screen, to the IDSA web. We've seen the unity of the different communities and industrial community. And it's kind of an encyclopedia, but it's not kind of a dead piece of paper. No, it's meant to be a living document. The idea is actually that we contribute, that you can contribute actually to this publication, and you can update. So there's an opportunity to update chapters. New stuff happens, new numbers, new events. We can update the ontology accordingly. It is published, so that's a chapter on mobility transformation and competitiveness of European automakers. This chapter has been created together with the Center of Automotive Research. They run their own surveys and they developed measures on the degree of innovation in the auto business. Let me show you fancy charts and graphs. So if you need some empirical information on the transformation of the auto business, that's covered here. The next chapter goes straight to the new mobility and mobility enabled, powered by data spaces. We also have started to provide a pan-European perspective, not just focused on Germany, but we are explicitly focused on Europe. And that is probably a good tie-in if I switch back to the overview chart. Let me share this with you. Into our other thrust. So the one thrust is to get the word out. So we go to events, we submit papers at events, and we have our own publication in form of this anthology. That's one. The other one is that we want to be explicitly focused on getting the word out internationally. So in a first step into other European countries and then also beyond Europe, into the world. And one vehicle is international funding projects. And this is one endeavor that is spearheaded by Sebastian Preach. So he is particularly focused on this particular one. And he's unfortunately not in, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it, now, but next time there are some interesting activities. So the key idea is actually come to us if you have good ideas. We're also very aware of funding opportunities in mobility and automotive on data spaces and related technologies. Come to us and we may find ways to team up, join up, and maybe an easier way actually to come through us than doing it all by yourself. So that's in a nutshell what the community is about. And anthology here, again, if you have any ideas, you want to get your word out yourself, come to us. We may be able actually to publish your ideas, your paper in our anthology. So let me then quickly get started and link over to the panel and link back to how I started out. Revolution, right? I said it's a attractive title, right? Makes people hopefully, drives interest in what we do. But it's not. I didn't come up with this, right? It wasn't me, but it's a highly reputed German newspaper, the Frankfurt Allgemeine Zeitung, proclaimed just very recently revolution in data markets. So it's an indication that indeed we seem to be shifting to a new phase. And I couldn't have asked for a better timing, because that would have been my theme anyway, actually, with this particular panel. And to be a little bit provocative, maybe a little bit, I would like to say at this point that the technology issue actually of data space is solved. Very provocative, but it's, from a market perspective, it's done, right? We know we're going to have data space technology. And yes, of course, the technology itself will evolve with different versions, different flavors of it, right? And to maybe think of it more like the smartphone or the phone, right? We started out with iOS 1, now with iOS 13, or the browser, to me, probably even a better comparison. Well, the browser started, 30 years ago, right? And it established itself right there, and then it created a whole new space of business. It was a revolution in essence, right? It triggered a revolution. So, and in terms of data space, it has been done. We've hit that same stage, right? When 1993, when the browser was 1993, that's where we are. So let's move on, right? Let's move on. Technology will sort it out. Always be different. It'll be something that people will stay busy with. The next thing is the use cases. The next phase is use cases, and the good news here is they're under construction. They're happening, and maybe some of the guest speakers today might be able to allude to that. We do see currently the emergence of those use cases. So what's left, right? So technology is solved, right? Use cases on the way. What is left actually to be done? And the one thing is that now it seems to be focused or to use the maybe overused buzzword of ecosystems. But now we have to actually put it in a bigger setting. And so I chose this as the title panel today. And I'm not going to lose any more time. Let me then quickly switch over to the panel and let me introduce to you the panel members. I'm very fortunate, very grateful that all three gentlemen were able to make time available and join us here. And the first one is Andreas Heindl. Andreas has been spearheading the data space project funded by the German government. In fact, I think it's probably Angela Merkel called him, because Angela Merkel, in October 2020 at the Automotive Summit, Angela Merkel proclaimed auto industry should build data spaces. So she asked the industry to build data spaces, and the German government used its own money to create a data space, and they asked Architect to do it, and Andreas Heindl is actually running this project. So Andreas, so I would hand over you to in 2-3 minutes, explain, provide the audience with a little overview of what the mobility data space is all about.
Yes, I'm very excited to introduce them. As you already mentioned, mobility data was launched at the IDSA Congress in Hamburg, and we were able to show 15 or 16 use cases. And the good news are the architecture, the technique is really functioning, and use cases can go productive. So the data space technology as a whole is there, and that's what we were able to prove and show to the public. Well, the mobility data space is aiming to become some kind of one-stop shop for mobility data, not only car data or public transport data, but also infrastructure data, weather data, all included in the mobility data space, to combine these data for new solutions all around mobility, and the transformation of mobility in the next years, in order to promote data-driven business models. And as you can see,
audio quality is not that good. At the chat, the people say, "Yeah, we can't understand you very well." So maybe you can change the mic or refresh your browser again, because we would like to follow your content, but this is not easy.
Now, if it takes longer, I can ask Frank to step in, maybe, if that's, or we just wait for Andreas to come back and.
Yeah,
now?
Yeah, Andreas, can you hear us?
Perfectly.
Now we can hear you better, I think.
Okay.
If you want to share your slides again quickly. Yeah.
Okay, I will. So what I was talking about was the successful launch at the ITS World Congress, and the good news that the use cases and the architecture is really functioning. And as you already mentioned, Chris, that the data space technique really is on its way, and now it's about getting the mobility data space and data space techniques on the scaling in order to get more data-driven business models around the transformation of mobility. We are strongly connected to the IDS architecture. You all know it with the data catalog in the middle and the data exchange peer-to-peer between the different players and the data sharing in order to promote new products and innovations. In the end, it's all about use cases. I don't want to talk about specific use cases because there are so many in the meantime. I just want to stick to the point and focus on the whole spectrum where use cases can be promoted on the mobility data space, from disruption of traffic, as parking is some kind of area for use cases, machine learning, innovation, or connected the recommendation connected to the weather conditions. There are so many possibilities, and now when the mobility, the data sharing community is still growing and growing, the options for doing use cases is growing with the community, and that's one of the main aspects that we have to focus on communities to get more data on the data spaces, to get more use cases, and in the end, new solutions for mobility in the upcoming years. So just a brief overview, and the advertising slide, join the data sharing community. So thank you.
Very well. Thanks a lot, Andreas. Let me just quickly switch over to Frank. Frank, brief introduction. You are the founding director of a brand new institute from the German Aerospace Center, DLR, in Germany. I'm very happy to have you. The institute is focused on AV. You yourself, you're an esteemed computer science professor. You've worked on simulation systems, or even e-learning. So I'm very happy. I've also seen you literally out there in the business community, literally working on business issues, and that is a rare breed of professors actually doing this. So I'm very happy actually to have you here, and please introduce your data space initiative.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for the kind introduction, and also thank you for the introduction for the overall session, because as you know, I'm a silently working and living computer scientist here in the northern part of Germany, and now I see myself as being part of a revolution. So what a great evolution is that of a person. So it's nice to contribute to this session. I will share my screen so that you get some impressions what we are currently working on. So one important aspect is in the background we have the guiding principles which are the foundation of Gaia X. And what is the relation to IDS? IDS is a perfect starting point for many of the activities striving for implementing Gaia-X ready applications. So we need to have a quick start, and we need to have to accept that we all together have to work in a way so that we have to accept also a learning curve. So we have to see, okay, what are the concepts we really can rely on? What are the technical foundations we can already find which are available, and their IDS is perfect to have a quick start, to start some projects, really learning while implementing use cases, to see, okay, what are the best approaches to implement these use cases, following the guiding principles of Gaia-X, and also how to improve the technical foundation, so providing the requirements, what is really needed from the perspective of the applications. And the mobility domain I'm the ambassador here in Germany for is one of several domains we have here defined, following some important industrial sectors or the public hand and that stuff. And mobility is focusing here on different use cases with respect to user-friendly and systemically approached mobility solutions. Everything should be intermodal, coordinated, and cooperative, and all that stuff. And when it comes to the requirements regarding the digital layer, which we need to implement this, we see the Gaia-X idea and also the building blocks we can derive from IDSA are perfect as a foundation, because we need to have an ecosystem which is open and flexible, service-oriented, and capable of transformation, so that we can have a further evolution of our mobility system. And this is very important for us. And in the context of the project family Gaia-X for Future Mobility, we currently have 5 projects defined. So, and we are working also on different use cases. So this is also, as Mr. Heindl said, is also important here for us to find and to keep the focus. What are we really working on? And one project is focusing on advanced mobility services in terms of automated vehicles embedded in intelligent traffic infrastructures. The second project, Gaia-X for ROMS, is focusing on remote operation in different styles, so to say. So focusing on one vehicle, but also focusing on a fleet of automated vehicles. Gaia-X for PLC is focusing on the entire product life cycle of an automated vehicle, and supporting this entire life cycle based on Gaia-X technology. And this project is also an important link to the later presented Catena-X project. And the Gaia-X for MoveID project will contribute by innovative solutions for decentralized digital identities and trustworthy data exchange, which is relevant for all the other projects I mentioned so far, but also has some own use cases on board in the project, focusing a wide range of applications, more focusing on a vehicle or a component, and then also addressing the system layer. And we already have for some time running Gaia-X for KI or AI. It's a project providing a platform for AI developments. And the nice thing now is, and this is why we talk about a family of projects, is these projects are not independent or totally independent from each other. So we have defined some horizontal activities to have some joint discussions regarding basic technologies on the application level, on the federation level, or on the technology level, how to embed this on our computer system, so that we have really a complete view about the ecosystem we have to come up with. And we want to already identify some joint standards, some joint architectures and approaches how to implement these services, so that we can reuse them in really a good way, so that in the end we can provide a best practice sharing. And therefore, we are also connected strongly to the mobility data space because as Mr. Heinl said, a one-stop shop for mobility data. So we need these data, and it's important to be connected to that. And also we have a connection to Catena-X because there are also many basic software components are currently under development. So and this is what we are doing, and this is our idea how to support also the community. So by providing our implementation so that we can show it works, and on the other hand, providing requirements for further improvement of the basic technologies and the IT infrastructure. And in the family of projects which we have here, currently 80 partners are involved, and we have more than 8,000 person months available now to work on our ideas on the use cases and also improving Gaia-X or also then picking up IDS components. So thank you.
Very cool, very cool. Let me quickly jump over then to Georg Schnaufer. Georg is a veteran in Industry 4.0, I believe, and he runs a very nice shop. I mean, I ask you to check out his website, Arena 36. I think, you know, if you need an office, that's where we would like to have your office. It's a whole. It looked like an assembly facility, you know, out of the future, really. And he is also involved. He's involved in the third big data space, and that is an entirely industry-driven initiative. Whereas the first one is more from the government, the other one more R&D heavy. The first one is more centered on IDS, and we see the other one more involving into Gaia Exploration Services technology coming out of Gaia X ISBL activities. We see Catena-X as being one that is yet another, that's introducing yet another flavor of technology. The example, the connector being now developed under an open source umbrella called the Eclipse Foundation. And Georg, and I think he just left the room, is it? Is Georg gone?
He's overwhelmed, I think.
Oh, overwhelmed, is that? So, it is a very nice visit. Georg, perfect. You're just
sorry,
back at the same time.
Just in the right moment, the internet cut.
No worries.
So, Chris, thank you very much for the kind introduction, and also to Andreas and Frank. I think what we really experience here is that we share a common vision, we share a common approach, and we work from different direction to the same center. And that is also the case for Catena-X. I think we can underline that many of the technical aspects are already solved, Chris. We both know that our colleagues who are really dealing with these aspects would not really subscribe to that, because otherwise they wouldn't have to work anymore. But of course, they're working very hard, and that's generating very good results also. But I want to say that because we are not going into the technical details right now. Catena-X is a very big project. We have almost 14,000 man hours or man months in this project, 28 companies with all kind of different positions within value chains in the automotive business. And we have use cases also, as well as Frank and Andreas. So we are working on use cases. But let me give you another impression of an aspect which is really important for us in order to incubate the ecosystem, because that's actually what we work on. And so you should be able to see my screen right now. Let me go to the presentation mode so far. So what is Catena-X about? What we do is the digitization and the support of the data exchange along value chains. Value chains for the car, meaning value chain
Do you hear Georg, or am I the one not hearing him?
No.
He's gone?
I think the connection is broken again, so.
Yeah, I've been struggling too. I apologize with the connection. I've also
Yes, me
been
too.
dropping out a little bit here intermittently. I'm sorry for the audience, actually. Yeah, maybe to fill in, maybe really quickly, Catena, oh, Georg, you're back. Excellent. So sorry about that. I'm also dropping in and out, actually. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, let me just move on with the screen sharing. These are some small impediments, but that doesn't hinder us. So what is Catena X striving for? We want to establish an ecosystem within the automotive business. And that does not only mean within the OEM and tier one level. We want to establish this ecosystem really going down to a level 3 or 4. Here is the slide. Let me just switch off my camera. Maybe that helps. So, and what do we do in order to ignite the ecosystem? Well, first of all, we create easy to use products. That means that the products Catena X is developing are SME ready in a regard to that the products are easy to understand, easy to implement. And we really think that we can do that within an onboarding process between 2 and 4 months. So the barrier is quite low. We accompany that with the sharing of knowledge. So everything we develop within the consortium shall be transparent and will be visible on the website and many other transfer activities like this event, like many other events also. On top of that, we want to enable do-it-yourself processes. That really means that we provide all the knowledge and all the information, tools, methods, handbooks, guidelines, which a company needs really to adopt Catena X solutions for themselves. Still on top, we want to support the supporters. So like, for example, consultants or scientists or whoever is able to provide support to SMEs, to other companies, shall receive our results, shall receive our support in order to multiply that and to establish himself as a multiplier. And on top of that, we want to support the access to funding. That means that we guide the way to existing funding programs, especially for SMEs, but not only limited to SMEs. And we want to make sure that these fundings provide also a reduction of the investment barriers, which of course are implied by digitization efforts like Catena X and onboarding effects on ecosystems like Catena X. What do we use as a process? First of all, we start within the consortium. So that is, of course, the basis. Like I said, we have a very strong consortium with a lot of capacity. So we are going to see a deep impact already within the partners who use their own solutions. And this is going to be the ignition for inspiring many existing transfer structures, networks, consultants, multipliers, like I said. There is a big network within Germany we collaborate with already. And this in turn is going to be the basis for an international and cross-sectoral transfer within Europe, within the rest of the world, and also to other sectors. Frank mentioned that, Andreas mentioned that. This is hopefully going to be enough in order to create a self-sustaining rollout effect. And that as an end result is going to be the basis for an ecosystem for development, for user, for application provider, for service provider around the Catena X vision. Thank you very much.
That's awesome, Georg. That's awesome, Georg. And that's actually the perfect ending here, because I want to just tag onto that and drill actually a little bit deeper, right? I mean, what we've seen is like networks, we have seen tiers, and literally we all know this all takes off if we add more members to this. Literally, those 1 + 1 = 3 dynamics. Now, the difficulty is if we are small, how do we grow it? How do we get it started actually to get it into a steady state? My example that I often use, an internal combustion engine. You know, it runs, but how do we get it to run, right? It needs another engine, an electrical motor. So what is your electrical motor? How do you get started actually, right? So what do you do in terms of community building and ecosystem? Let me quickly circle through this. Andreas, I would like to hear from you. What do you do? What does MDS do to get into a steady state there?
I think there are different levels of activities. First of all, it's the history of the whole project, because we started with a stakeholder process, getting together all the major players in the mobility sector, from the OEM suppliers to public transport, municipalities, politics, and so on. And we decided on the architecture, on the roadmap, and it was a very, very inclusive process where some kind of community and ecosystem was started, and on which we can now rely when we are scaling the mobility data space within Germany, to the regions of Germany, but also scaling to a European level in order to connect to activities around Gaia X and so on. And in the end, one of the success factors was that Akatech was in the middle of the whole process, and already and still is in the middle of the process as a neutral player, bringing the stakeholders together every day on a regular basis, and which is able to scale up the company with new shareholders, and to execute the whole community activities with a lot of info sessions, with insights on the technology, with the options to test the whole infrastructure, and to get to know it, and to learn about the whole infrastructure. And in the community, what we are learning is that the different players can exchange their experiences, and that's one of the most important things, to exchange views on how to solve problems, first of all, and in the whole exchange with the different players, there is also some kind of matching, which makes possible to create new ideas for use cases, and to connect data, to share data for new solutions. So this is a process which is very, very basic, and is about bringing people together and show them the whole technique. And we're in the very comfortable situation that we have the use cases where we learned about the infrastructure, where the experiences can be shared, and where we can improve the whole.
So what I hear is this: actually, you have just a cozy place. I mean, that is because you're a neutral guy. People feel comfortable, right, in your neighborhood, hanging out in your neighborhood, right? You're an eye level, right, and then you're investing in dating, essentially, right? That's what I've heard in this. Interesting, Andreas. Let me move on to let me move on to Frank. Let's see.
Also a cozy place. So I think you have no idea what we're really doing, but you are invited to work 1 week in our institute. So maybe you can learn about our cozy place in a little bit. So, but more seriously, so what we are also currently doing is building up a community. So and this is what we are doing for some months in the domain mobility embedded in the German Gaia X Hub. So bringing companies together, larger companies, but in particular SMEs and startups, which are essential for implementing innovative services which we can embed in the new digital ecosystem. So this is really important, because otherwise we would stuck in the level of concepts and some technical foundations, but no one is really using it. So and what we want to do now is and that's why it's great to have these projects running, is that we can show that it really works, so that you can implement use cases of practical relevance for the mobility system of the future based on these technology. And we can also learn how to improve the existing implementations, so that in the end we really have a technical foundation which is common to everyone, and which follows some guiding principles we need, in particular here for us in the mobility domain. And therefore, we have planned to continuously inform the partners of the mobility domain in Gaia X what are the findings from the projects, what are good practices and best practices, so that we can share them to also allow the colleagues which are not part of the projects also to be part of the joint learning and be part of our discussions how to proceed and how to improve. So, and I think this is really community building what we are doing currently. And luckily we have some things in hand provided by the projects we can now start working on.
Yeah, I do see. It seems that you're taking advantage of the one strength is actually that you have very strong R&D capabilities in your projects, I think, right? And then you leverage, it seems, the German Gaia X Hub. I know you're very active in the mobility. I think you are even the chair, I think, or co-chair of the German Mobility Hub as a conduit, actually, in order to reach out to particularly startups, right? Because you do have that strong R&D expertise in your projects.
Yeah,
very cool.
And this is really essential for us, Chris, because we don't want to improve things. So by having now a new digital infrastructure, improving business which we already have, we want to provide a platform for new ideas. So to come up with new digital assets and provide some services really as a product, and to be part of the story or the idea of a platform economy and data economy. And this is really something what we are striving for, to encourage our community to really actively dig into the topic. This is really important.
So let's move now from the neutral place to the one that is anchored in the hub and with a strong R&D now to the industry-focused, industry-driven initiative. Georg.
I think it's not that different at all, because I would underline everything Frank and Andreas said. Maybe as a consequence, community building is going to be the starting point. What we strive for is joining forces. At the end, it has to come out that we join forces, because we have all limited resources. And I'm saying that not because Catena X is an extremely big project, of course it is, but still we are on a global competition of the best ideas, the best concepts, and especially the adoption of innovation. So we need to bundle our forces, we need to join our forces really in order to make the impact here from a European level, and take it even with a big project like Catena X or with the projects here from Mobility Data Spaces, and use them as an incubator, as an overall system on a national or international level that really guides the way how we deal with the principles concerning data sovereignty, concerning IT security, information security, and so forth, which are our core European values. And that's what we need to reflect on the solutions we develop on a technical basis. So this is one point, joining forces. And I think the other point, we really are very fortunate to be able to use it, is the fact that the Federal Ministry of Germany for economics and climate provides infrastructure which goes beyond the project itself, because they are going to provide so-called transformation hubs, for example. And this is a new initiative, which for me is a really a disruptive innovation for the innovation system on a national basis. And they are going to close the gap from a technology readiness level like 4 or 5, maybe 6, to 7, 8, and maybe also in some regard 9, meaning really reliable systems, reliable solutions. And that is what we didn't have so far. And I hope that the joint forces we are able to use now, combined with these new structures, are going to create a whole other level of impact of the projects. I think this is a really good window of opportunity we have to make use of.
Yeah. Do you have any? Let me do a quick follow-up question there. Do you have any advantages actually from that particular setup? I do know automotive is a global business actually, right? I would think that actually that having the automakers in that particular project, that would, and their business being global, I think there is a runway right there, right? Are there any?
Absolutely. Yes. I think that this is a big chance because, to be honest, what we observe in an industry perspective, funded projects are not that motivation factor anymore like they were 10 or 20 years ago. So in order to incorporate the solutions in the practical application, we need additional structures to get the transfer done. And that is what we really can execute with these structures. They start right now. We had the first launch of the first call some weeks ago. There's going to be a second launch at the end of April. And we're confident that all the major players from the automotive business are going to be represented more or less within these structures. And that's why they are able to multiply the solutions we have. I think Chris left us for a short second. But he'll be back soon.
I would like to add 2 points to what you said, Georg. First of all, joining forces is something very, very essential, that we are pulling in the same direction, and in the end to create some kind of not only community around each data space, but to create some kind of ecosystem of data spaces. Which is another level we have to keep in mind first. And second, that's what also the question of Chris was, and your answer. What we learned is around the mobility data space, that players which are not used to talk to each other are now talking to each other and talking about new solutions. And this is what really, in a very, very practical way, changes structures and creates new ideas. It's very productive and important to transform the mobility system.
And then what you mentioned is that we want to strive for a new platform or new foundation for new types of cooperation and collaboration, not just in the industrial branches we have today, but also cross-sectoral. And this is something I think what we are currently stimulating also. And I think we also are there successful in that area because we already have some ideas for cross-sectoral use cases. And by that, it is obvious that we have to discuss the interoperability of data spaces, that stuff which is then of high importance. Also, we should not forget that we are working. We have some use cases in mind, and we need to have them to keep the focus. But we should always have in mind we are providing the technical foundation for future use cases and new applications. And this is why I like not to have these competitive discussions regarding the foundation, because we need to have a commonly accepted foundation for all of the applications we have in mind, because then we can integrate them successfully, and then this is an overall success.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm back. I apologize. I seem to be dropping in and out here. Sorry about that. Yeah, we are getting close to the end of this, and I want to do a quick go around. If there are any questions, I've been looking in the chat. I can see any questions, or maybe my chat is frozen too, but let me do a quick go around. And what I typically like to do, what is the key challenge, right? You know, what your key challenge, and how would you invest €1? If I would give you €1, right, to fix the challenge of the problem, where would it go, right? So where do you get the biggest return on invest there, right? So, and so volunteers, who would go first? Because that's, you know, does anybody want to get started out of the gate? So what is the key challenge that you see, and, you know, what would you be, if I give you €1, where would it go actually, right? It could be more comfy, right? You know, like the neutral space, you know, more accessibility of startups, easier way to integrate, or, you know, with industry.
Well, maybe I can start.
Yeah, Andreas.
Not
Yes,
directly connected to the architecture, but it's on the topic of business models and the monetization of data. That's something where we have to create awareness, where companies have to switch their minds, and this is, I think, the most important thing to rethink the platform economy, and to boost it in all kinds of companies.
Very cool. Okay, next one.
So, and then I would invest this euro in activities striving for providing a minimal viable Gaia X. So these things are currently under development, and they are working on that. But I think this is really important to have a repository where you find all the important software components and documents, so that you can really start working. I think this is highly important currently.
I would invest this euro in the moderation and the coordination of the different activities, because I really think that we found here so many extremely interesting projects, and I'm sure that if you look underneath the hood, you will find a lot of synergies. That takes time. It would take time for us to look into the mobility data space. It would take time for the mobility data space to look into Catena-X and so forth. We are fortunate because we have some people who are having a perspective of both, but still I'm absolutely sure we would find tons of synergies if we go one step deeper and really bundle forces on an operative level to really develop highly effective solution, which are more or less usable for different projects.
Wow, to the point. Very good. So that gave me actually a few more minutes. And if I have a few more minutes, I'll probably ask another question actually, right? And that's maybe also a little edgy, the question, and that is, do we need more regulation actually in that space? I mean, is regulation required, you know, in terms of to grow the ecosystem, right? You know, I would think about, do we have to force people to share data? I mean, to be very, you know, offensive, you know, put it this way, do we have to force people, or are we able actually to create use cases that's so beneficial that's a no-brainer for people to come. I mean, later on, we all know that'll happen. We really talk about this early incubation phase, you know, the early infancy stage. It is the hard part, actually, right? So, you know, is that something? And back to you guys.
I think it's really a complicated question, because I think there are some areas where regulation will help. So providing data, for instance, in the mobility area, I think this may help to have some basic data regarding traffic and that stuff. So there it will help. When it comes to companies who really want to strive for innovative services and new products and digital products, so to say, I think we have to provide them a safe ground to do these steps. So all the things which are defined in the guiding principles for Gaia X should be implemented properly, so that you really have a safe ground for sharing your information and maybe some sensitive information or IP, which is part of data you share. And this is highly important, I think. So yeah, that they have a trusted environment.
Mm-hmm. Any other perspective? Any other perspective from Andreas or Georg on this?
Well, I'm not sure if regulation is the right answer for data sharing. Well, the mobility data space aims to trigger data sharing with a new kind of infrastructure, a sovereign infrastructure, and we should try to promote this infrastructure for promoting data sharing, and that's what we are hoping for, that the new sovereign data sharing communities triggering data sharing.
I would answer.
So no more regulation required, in a sense. Yeah, Georg?
Yeah, I think regulation is a difficult word. I think we should more think about infrastructure, because this, every government is building roads and ways and doing infrastructure backbone. So what is the equivalent on the digital basis? That is, I think, it's a legitimate question. And the other thing is standards and norms, because I think that this is one mandatory basis for really being able to create interoperability, and that's the overall goal. So I think standards and norms is quite an important corridor.
Now what I hear, and that's exactly perfect ending for this. You're good, actually, right? You don't need the government to step in and help you out, right? So you feel comfortable actually to drive your data space initiatives just on your own, actually, right? So with that, I really appreciate you guys here. I could keep on going, actually, right? You know, it's been I'm very fortunate that you were able to come together, a very illustrative round of experts. So really appreciate it, guys. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Andreas.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.